And who are you? An elderly woman walking in the door next door asked. I am the heiress of this apartment, Oksana smiled. I'll be your neighbor. Are you Oksana, or what? Yes, do you know me? Of course, I remember. You were still a little girl. Too much for me, heirs. As my grandmother was ill, they didn't stick their nose in here, but as soon as they got an apartment, they did it right there. Shameless. The woman went into her apartment and slammed the door. Yes, a good neighborhood did not work out. But why should Oksana be immediately blamed for not visiting her grandmother? Because her grandmother herself did not want to communicate either with her or with her mother, her former daughter-in-law. Well, everything happens in life. If people get married, get divorced, what next is related to the former mother-in-law. Moreover, my mother told me that my grandmother's character was fierce. It is unclear why she left her inheritance to her at all, and not to her son. Yes, my father has another family and he lives somewhere in a foreign country, but still. One-room apartment, small, but cozy and bright. The repair is simple, cosmetic, but it will do for a start. Then everything will have to be redone, but it will take time. Furniture definitely needs to be changed, everything is kind of old. We'll have to call a team of movers to take everything away in one fell swoop and leave only bare walls. Mom, of course, offered to sell this apartment and buy it with an additional payment in the best area of the city, but Oksana likes it here, and there is less fuss. Oksana almost did not remember her grandmother, only briefly, in episodes. Mom said that her mother-in-law was a terrible woman, greedy, quarrelsome, and was not going to take part in the upbringing of her granddaughter. For some time they lived together with their grandmother, even when their father abandoned them and went abroad, and their mother-in-law bit her mother so much that they had to move to different parts of the city. And then Mom married Nikolai, Oksana's stepfather. The doorbell rang. It was still the same neighbor with an album in her hands. Here, Lida asked me to give it to you when you show up, she said, somehow nervously, with anger in her voice. This album was the greatest value for her. And you are there in this album. Look, maybe you will remember your own grandmother and you will be ashamed. Yes, what should I be ashamed of? Can you explain to me? Grandma didn't want to talk to us herself. Oh, is that it? The neighbor smiled sarcastically. Did your mom sing that to you? Then listen to the truth, my dear. Let me go into the apartment. The woman did not even wait for permission from Oksana, pushed her aside and passed. My name is Vera Stepanovna, I was a friend of your grandmother Lida. Your grandmother was a kind-hearted person, intelligent, educated. They lived then with your grandfather, God rest his soul, in the center of the city in a 3-room apartment. Grandfather was a big boss, it's a pity he left early, he didn't see whom his son Sasha would take as his wife. And he took your mother, a greedy, cunning girl, without education and his corner, brought her to his home. We lived together for 4 years and Sasha fell in love with a foreigner, left, also a fool. Lida did not drive her daughter-in-law, on the contrary, she pitied her and loved you. And your mother insisted on a change, took 2 for herself, and stuck Lida here, on our outskirts, in this tiny room. My mother told me everything completely differently. And why did Grandma agree? Because your mom is a fox, not a woman. She sang to her that she would take care of her like a mother, come often, and Lida, out of the kindness of her soul, believed her. I remember your mother, at first she came, caressed like a cat, and when I put Lida to bed for the first stroke, she suddenly disappeared. But of course, after all, it is necessary to take care of the mother-in-law. Sasha flew in, he was very angry that his mother had changed the apartment, but she kept repeating, it would be more convenient for her granddaughter. Sashka has been promoted abroad there, he lives in his house, his mother persuaded him to leave with him, but Lida did not want to go to any. Why didn't Grandma look for me? Didn't she call? Well, of course, I called your mother many times. At first, she reluctantly answered her, through the phone, and then completely said that no one wants to know Lida, even Oksana. Your mother was already married then, she gave up on her former mother-in-law. Well, what does it have to do with me? Why did she lie to me? I would love Grandma. I understand that for you, a young girl, Grandma was not a burden. Lida was sick a lot, often a social worker came to her. Well, also because Grandma didn't tell you the whole truth about her mother, how she acted meanly with her mother-in-law. She changed her apartment, left her here in our backwater and completely forgot. I sometimes called your mother, scolded, called to conscience, and she showered curses on me. It's a good thing at least Sasha sent money when it was necessary, because Lida and the night nurse were sometimes hired. Now, she couldn't stand the second stroke. Sashka came, and you weren't at the funeral, although your mother knew everything. I only found out later, but it was too late. Oksana covered her face with her hands. God, it's a shame. Well, okay, I don't blame you, maybe you really didn't know anything. Vera Stepanovna switched to a more peaceful tone. But if I were in the leader's place, I would have left you something. I would also have sued my apartment back. You are not worthy of this inheritance. They left the old lady to her fate. But I really didn't know anything. Oksana was ready to cry. Okay, live in peace. I will tell the neighbors that you are a good girl, otherwise they are very belligerent against your family. But keep in mind, your mother will show up here, they will hunt her down. Everyone loved Lida very much. Okay, I'm off. Oksana opened the album. Grandfather, grandmother, father, Oksana, and even mom, everything is there. Some other relatives that Oksana didn't know. There's a note between the pages. Oksana read. Hello Oksana, granddaughter. I know that this album will someday fall into your hands and you will understand that I loved you, even though I saw you when you were little. I'm not offended by my mother, it's a sin to keep a grudge to yourself, just know that I've never forgotten about you. Yes, I was sick a lot, so I couldn't come to see you myself. I called, but I couldn't hear you. I hope that my apartment will remind you that you had a loving grandmother Lida. Forgive me if something is wrong. The date has not been set, it is unknown when the letter was written, but apparently the grandmother had a premonition of her departure. Mom called, once again offered to sell this apartment and buy it in a better area, but Oksana refused. I wasn't in the mood to fight with my mom right now, but someday Oksana will tell her everything. Mom, of course, will justify herself, prove her case, they will quarrel, and Oksana will leave her for her apartment under the reliable protection of neighbors.